Thanks for listening to our podcast, Living Life with the Rogers. My name is Cameron.
And I'm Kira, and this is a lifestyle podcast where we talk about hashtag all the things. Listen in.
Hello, listeners, and thank you for tuning in to a new podcast, The Living Life with the Rogers. And I know consistently, just when people think we're goners, and you're like, oh, we're ready to unsubscribe, they're never putting out new content, and here we come back again.
What I want to say isn't appropriate, so I guess I'm just going to have to keep it to myself.
All right,
I always have good one-liners, but they're, like, not appropriate. Like, I don't understand. So a lot of things I just have to keep to myself.
I mean, what we need to do is invest in, like, a, what are those things where I can bleep you out half the time? Is that what we need to do?
Yes, I need a bleeper. That's what I need.
Well, we're resilient folks here, so we're still kicking and ready to bring
back from the dead.
We're here to bring you a new topic. We got kids napping and
sort of.
Yeah, we're hoping for it so we can record you a new podcast and go from there. So today's topic is the world is your enemy. That sounds really intense.
It's a little serious, but okay.
So, the world is your enemy, and what we want to touch base is how this world is set up for an individual's failure, or how it's set up to basically fight against you.
Well, and I think the world right now is just a really dark, sad place, and so we're going to attempt to unpack that and shed some light on why we might find ourselves in the state that we do.
Well, we're in Maryland, so what state?
I mean, the state of the world.
The mindset.
Times are tough out there, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so things are dark everywhere you turn. So I think I just wanted to kick it off by stating the truth of it all is that we are up against an enemy, and that enemy wants us to fail and wants to make things hard on us. And so I wanted to kick it off with a verse, Ephesians 6:12. Some people out there will know this has to do with the armor of God, but it says in Ephesians 6:12 that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but it's against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. So that was a lot.
Yeah, you need to unpack that a little bit.
The simple way to put this is that this world and the enemy, which is Satan, is out to get you. That's just the best way I can put it. And it's out to get everybody, whether you're a believer in God, whether you aren't. It's out to get you to worship him. And it's then once you line yourself with him, it's meant to bring destruction, death, and everything bad with it.
On the opposite side, God is for us. He's for light and peace and joy and love. But the problem is we've had so much breakdown in the way that we humans were intended to live on this earth that now a lot of people are worshiping dark, death, destruction, all of that. And it just leads to hate and division. And I think why we're seeing a lot of death these days is because people have turned from the light. They've turned from God. They've turned from the way that he laid it out for us, how we're supposed to live. And we're just not really following those instructions very well. And I think that the man, the manly man. No, the man who was designed to be the head of the household. And we did a whole episode on what it means to look like, what it looks like to be a godly man who a family should respect, because that's a whole nother thing, right? Like the man has to do his job. We did a whole podcast episode on that. You can listen to it. But I think that Satan is heavily attacking our men because they are designed to be the head of the family. And when the man breaks down, then the family breaks down. And that leads to a whole slew of trauma, disorder, dysfunction. It's kind of like the breakdown of the person when you don't have a strong family structure. And that's when people just are left to their own demises.
So basically, it's even bigger than just a household. It's that men are not leading the way in the world, politically, in businesses, and everywhere. They're not taking the leadership role they were intended by God to do. And that's leading by example, leading as a servant, putting others first, letting people gain success off the work of a man's back. And instead, the media is portraying us as lazy, no goods,
Well, and
slouching around.
what about integrity and commitment too? Like,
Yeah.
what happened to like being committed to someone and having high integrity and a strong work ethic? Like, there's just so many principles that God laid out for us in the Bible that are designed for light and love and health, and we've just kind of like we've gone a little astray from those. But yeah, but you think like I always think like, but how do people get like so screwed up? Like when you meet an adult or whatever, like, and you're like, wow, like they're just really on the struggle bus, right? Like, and it's like, well, they were a child once. Like I just feel like so much of it starts as like a child, and I feel like again when we have the breakdown of families and we don't have a lot of health in our families, it's like those children grow into unhealthy, sick adults who don't get the help that they need.
Oh, are you ready for my fancy trigger word that like I'm in a season of?
Go ahead.
Oh, you're so excited. It's called generational curses. I don't know if I would ask people to Google it. It could send you down a wild trail. Moral of the story, it's a fancy way of basically saying that each generation can produce fruit, but it can also produce damage. So the curses are the damage that each generation keeps bleeding out to the next generation. So it's funny if you actually just spend a little bit of time, like I don't know if you can like ask family, maybe more healthy family members of like things that you witnessed, things you saw. Then you ask them about their parents, and then you go back to your great grandparents. You'll start to see some trends and some similarities. And so maybe anger, maybe violence, maybe it's a disease. It can be so many different things that get passed down that ultimately, ideally you would have somebody in this current generation that's seeing it, that has their eyes open and will fight with the power of God to address it and to kind of break that curse.
Yeah, I bet if you look at like anything that you struggle with in your own life, you can probably trace it back to something that your parents did, or like, and again, like it could have been something that they experienced from their parents. Like it could go back a couple generations and nobody ever took the time to heal from it or like work on changing it, grow personal development, like spent time really growing. So but again, like I feel like it all comes back to the family structure, and I just feel like Satan has tried so hard to break down the family. And we can kind of go into this, like one of the biggest ways that he's done that is just by keeping us too busy. And I feel like the government kind of like piggybacks, like he's so manipulating the government to say like, you have to do this, you have to work this for me in order to make a living and support your family. And like it's just too much. We work way too much. There's just no time for like having quality family time, sitting down to communicate, having intimacy with your partner. And then also the culture that we've created of you are the best if you are succeeding highly at a sport. And so families spend so much time, and like we have to watch this is something that we could easily get pulled into. You're just spending all your time taking your kids to your sports or being at the sporting fields instead of actually having quality family time and making sure that all of the needs of the family are being met.
Let's unpack you touch base on the government, and I think we need to flesh that out a little bit. Is what you're saying is this world, so the government's there, it's told that it's there for our safety, it's for our good. And I think it's a dual threat, meaning that the government was set up to basically keep us safe from enemies, to look out for our benefit. And I think what's happened is I still think there's some good there, but I think we have to see what the negative is. And we have to understand that there are, and I don't want to get into like politics, which side do you lean on, left, right?
They all suck.
They all suck. That's the reality. Is I don't care if you're right, I don't care if you're left. They're all there to pitch you against each other. And it's a big manipulative game that's there to cause division and to cause us all to be a bunch of enemies for no good reason, because the reality is the right side sucks, the left side sucks. So here we are. But the government is failing because they are intentionally, through the power of our enemy, through Satan, they are intentionally making our lives more difficult. And the point is for our demise. And so it's the breakdown of the family. It's the breakdown of our time. It's a breakdown of our well-being. I mean, it's not a
Well, and they
coincidence
want
that
all the power, right? So the government doesn't want us to succeed because they want us to need them so that they have all of the control and the power, right? And so it's like if we don't if we don't need them, then they mean nothing, right? So it's like how can they get us in a position where we just feel like we have to depend on that? And part of it, I feel like, is making the standard for making like the amount of money you have to make to live in this country is insane. And so they're like, oh, well, come work for us and we will provide you this asinine amount of money that you need to pay your bills. Like, don't be a small business. Like, don't be an entrepreneur. Like, you're never going to make it. You need us in order to pay your bills, right?
yeah,
So it's like,
and so that's kind of the breakdown is the dependence on them when they were supposed to work for us. They were supposed to be for our benefit. So we need to understand that Satan's behind all this stuff, trying to rob us of our joy, and he's doing it starting from the government level, and then we start breaking that down into the job level. Because I always ask this question is like where your priorities are or where you spend your time. So, but here's the problem is I think a lot of us, if we had the choice, we would prioritize family time. We would prioritize
outside time.
our own
Yeah.
fun, enjoyment, maybe going to sporting events for fun, hanging out with friends, at a restaurant, getting out and about, socializing. So we would say we would prioritize that. But here's the problem. Your priorities are where you spend the most time. So where do you spend the most time? Well,
Work.
everybody's going to answer, yeah, work. They're going to go, I live, breathe, and eat. The only time I actually don't see the sun when daylight savings time comes because the sun's not up when I drive to work, and then the sun's already pretty much down, if not already down by the time I'm heading home from work. And so the society has broken down to the point where we can't even be functioning human beings because we're spending all our time, not where we think our priorities are, but just with jobs and work, just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, and things like going to the gym or going on hikes, like all of those things that are make us healthy and help us thrive are the first things to go because again,
Yeah.
like you have to pay the bills. I mean, or you don't provide for your family doesn't eat and you don't have a house to live in, which happens too. But like people are like, no, I don't want that to happen to my family. So like I'm gonna just do this job that I'm miserable, that makes me depressed, that makes me anxious, that because I want to provide for my family. So it's like this sick like cycle that people are stuck in where it's like they can't get healthy and they can't have a healthy family because they are trying to provide for their family, which is a very respectful thing to do. But it's just frustrating because it's like, and then you choose to do the small business life, which is like what we've chosen because we're prioritizing our mental health over, having a job where we're out of the house 40 plus hours a week.
Oh, people are going to laugh at you and say 40, like they're like,
It's like, what,
60?
60 these days?
60
I don't know
is
what
the
it
new
is.
40. And if anything,
Yeah.
I've talked to people who are like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm a 60 to 70. I mean, it's
It's
insane.
insane. But yeah, it's like, and then you're struggling to make ends meet, but it's like, that's our burden to bear. We'd rather have that burden than being mentally unhealthy and having our family break down. But it's a tough spot to be in. And it's basically all back to our original point that Satan wants us to be in that spot. He doesn't want us to be set up to succeed. And the government does a great job assisting him in his mission.
So I think I could go off for days about how the system and how the world is set up for our demise. And I think we've started touching into it from the government level, then down to like, your work level, like how bosses treat you. I mean, the reality is, and I was told this one time, it's like, sometimes it feels like you're just a number. And I know in larger businesses, they treat you as like literally your employee number, your ID badge or whatever, you are number 1873529. And we go to these jobs and we pour our heart and soul into these things. We give them everything that we have. We give them all our time. We give them all our energy. We give them the best fruits of our life. And then come to find out one contract later and you're the first one to be unemployed. You're the first one that's sacked. And I would say this. I'm not sitting there trying to tell anybody, oh, don't work hard. Don't, don't give your job all that you have. But what I'm trying to say is that your job's not looking out for your best interest for the most part. I mean, I've talked to some people who have a really great management system, great bosses at their employment that really look out for them. But that's a rarity. And I think the greater majority, I would argue about 90% of the population is at a job where the people are not looking out for them. Your management's not looking out for you. Your boss isn't looking out for you. So it comes down to you have to protect yourself. So then if they're asking you to do, all this extra time, I want you to carry around a phone. So when you're at home, then you need to, maybe it's time for you to start fighting back. Maybe it's time for you to start looking what else is out there. Looking at going back to the to good old Indeed.com. I've been there plenty of times and see what else is out there. I don't want to sit there and say the grass is always greener, but there are other opportunities.
Well, the reality is that you have to fight for your own health and well-being. Like, if you think that your job and your employer and the government are going to do it for you, like, cute.
Yeah.
Like, you have to look out.
Just wait till you die and you're buried.
You have to look out for yourself. You have to put up your own boundaries. You have to tell them, no, I'm not going to take that job, or no, I'm going to not work these extra hours. Like, you have to fight for it. And it's the same thing we were kind of talking about too, like with your health, like, you have to fight to make the time to go to the gym. I mean, right now, our workout is literally just getting the 4 kids out the freaking door. Like, it's
the
just
pre-workout
about impossible.
is the workout.
But we got to fight for it because we know that it's good for our physical and our mental health. And I think the same thing comes down to like what you put in your body in terms of food. You were talking. Did you talk about media a little bit, or are you going to?
No, man, don't spoiler.
So, but like when it comes to like food, like, oh my gosh, the amount of food that we have at our fingertips that make us unhealthy and not feel good is like insanity. Like, you have to like fight to put something good and whole in your body. Like, it's just, everything is a fight and it's exhausting. But it's like, what do you want? Do you want to be healthy, or do you not care? And you're just like, well, whatever, I'm just going to do it the world way, which is what a lot of people are doing. And that's why we're in a very dark, depressed state.
Yeah, well, and then you hit the nail on the head. It's a fight. And so you're either surrendering to the battle or you're fighting the battle. And so if you're surrendering, you're giving in to the enemy, which means that you're just going to feel probably, what would you say? Anxiety, depression,
hatred,
anger, hatred. The list goes on. You just feel dark, the doom and gloom kind of perspective. Or you're fighting. And part of the fighting is in that Ephesians is putting on the armor of God. So it's going to battle, and it's going to get ugly. It's going to get hard. It's going to be insanely difficult. It can be stressful at times, but the more you press into God, the more peace you will get as the fight continues. So all this to basically say is it's time to start, and this is what we want to challenge everybody to do. It's time to start fighting. If you are a believer in God, so you wake up and you read the Bible, like, check in with yourself. What have you been fighting? Have you been fighting anything, or have you just been giving in to the way of culture? Have you been giving in to okay, you just work really hard, make a ton of money, retire, and die happy? Because that's a lie that the devil has created. Every single day is an opportunity, so you're either fighting or you're surrendering, and there's no in between. So I think this is a good convicting message that we wanted to share with our audience.
I've never understood that. Why do people think that you have to like work so hard, like work all the time in the best years of your life, to then store up all this money for when you're like 65 and you're like not getting around as well and you can't travel as well? Like, I don't understand that. Like, who decided that was a good idea?
Yeah, I heard this story. It was a true story years ago where this guy, so him and his wife, they saved a lot of money, and by 65 they retired. So they literally, it was always a dream of theirs to go to Europe. He was about to board the plane with his wife. They were about to go on, it was going to be a couple month trip to Europe and to see all these sites they've been planning for so long. Suffers a stroke, literally becomes almost just about a vegetable afterwards, and then never get to go.
I think the government just dangles your retirement as like a motivation to just keep working, and then one day you're gonna have all this money and you can do all these things and you'll finally be happy. Like, it's a sick trap.
Yeah, and then you have osteoporosis and everything else, and then you can't even leave your house.
I want to do things now while I feel healthy and strong. I got energy. Like, my kids are little.
Well, let's turn the page now. So now I think we've scared everybody's like, I think the government's out to get us.
Pretty much.
Jobs are out to get us. The world sucks. Everything's horrible. But let's start this. What do we do about it? And I think the first thing I kind of want to talk about is the first question we should ask people. So if you want to join the battle and you want to fight and you don't want to succumb to, what the devil's trying to give us, what he's trying to, force us into, what are you consuming? Where are you spending your time? So let's start with the first one. What are you consuming? What media are you looking at? What social media are you looking at? What TV shows, sitcoms, etc.? where are you spending all your time? And I know there's gonna be some people that go, oh, here he goes, he's just this little old Christian boy. Like they probably watch rated G stuff, and trust me, I get what you're saying. I'm not sitting there saying like I still watch Jersey Shore every once in a while. It's like, I mean, you can judge all you want, but I don't want to get legalistic with, oh, well, if it's PG-13, we can't. No, that's legalism. That's a whole different thing that I'm not going to get into today. But my point is this: if you're consuming the news 24/7, well, I can tell you this: let's talk about it. With what's going on with Israel right now, sickening. I mean, I've spent just a couple minutes between social media and the news channels, and like 5 minutes into it, and I'm just like, this is dark. This is evil. What's going on with Hamas is just straight up satanic at its finest. And they're pieces of scum, and what's going on with Israel is insane. So God bless Israel right now, and we definitely stand behind them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine balance of like, you got to be educated, but you cannot overconsume that content because it will affect you. It'll put you in a dark, depressed, anxious state. And it's like, I've mostly stayed out of it too, because it's like my focus is like my family. What I can control right now is like how I'm raising my children, so that when they are adults, they are loving, caring, functioning members of society, right? Like that's what I can control. There's not a whole lot I can do with, what's going on over there. So it's like, you really got to protect yourself and just know how much you can handle. And we do that with our kids too. Like most movies we let them watch, but then if we notice that like one year we watched The Nightmare Before Christmas with them, and Abby was having night terrors. So we were like, okay, like let's just, let's take a break on that movie. Like I think you just have to notice how the things that you're viewing and listening to are affecting you. And if it's causing you stress or anxiety and depression, it's got to go.
Exactly. Do a gut check and go, how do I feel after that? I mean, I'll tell you this, after a couple minutes of watching what's going on in Israel, it's like, I feel like I just want to cry. I just don't even want to ever leave the couch. It's a lot of anger.
Yeah, and I think there's wisdom in knowing, like, there are people that do a really good job, like, on social media. Like, I don't even turn on news is like a no-go in our house, because we just feel like that's a whole nother thing that's government controlled, and they can choose what they want to blah, blah, blah. That's
do you want your far right leaning, or do you want your far left leaning?
But there are some people, some individual people that are not swayed by money and government and power on social media that do a really good job. I think Sharon Says So is one of them. She educates the people, and she's very good about finding ways to help. And like some, again, like you get into some organizations that I'm not going to name drop because I don't know, but they'll keep half of the money and only send half of it for the relief. So there are people out there that will point you in the direction where, hey, if you feel like you want to donate money or whatever, they'll make sure that 100% of the proceeds go to the actual cause, and they'll educate you on both sides, and they're not going to be biased. So there's a wisdom in knowing like who and what and how much to consume and how that's going to affect you.
Exactly. So I think the moral of the story is do a gut check. I mean, what's your so when you're spending time on social media, what's your content look like? What's your feed content look like? And what emotions are you feeling? Are you feeling joy? Are you feeling anger? Are you feeling what would you say, like jealousy? There's a lot of different feelings you can have. So if your content's leading to something that's kind of negative or not producing fruit, it's kind of obvious what needs to go first, right? So it's one thing to kind of take inventory of what kind of media you're bringing into your life. But the other thing is, you hear this from a lot of people that go, well, I don't have time for things. And we've kind of discussed this, where all your time spent on job, working, and, then you get home and you just want to relax for a little bit. Well, you can start producing healthy habits with just a few minutes. So a lot of people are like, well, I don't have the time to go to the gym. Okay, well, you're probably looking at it too much. You're sitting there going, okay, it takes me a half hour to drive to the closest gym. It takes me 45 minutes to do the workout. Okay, start at home. Start with this, a quick YouTube video. There's plenty of channels out there. You can just use your body weight, and you just do 15 minutes. Start there. Oh, I don't have time to read. I don't have time to start fighting. And that's the reality, is you don't need a ton of time to start fighting. You just got to start somewhere. Start by taking 5 minutes each night before bed. You just open up I don't care what book interests you, read it for 5 minutes. Start choosing habits that are going to produce some fruit and aren't going to give way to the enemy constantly.
And I think you can do the same thing with like family time. It's like even just having 1 or 2 nights a week where you're like, all right, everybody's home. Let's play a game. Let's do a check-in. Like on Sunday, we did a check-in with our kids. Like, how's everybody doing? Like, what beef you got with each other? What are we trying to where are we trying to grow? Where are we like, so I think the point you're trying to make is it doesn't take much, like these small little things that you can carve into your week. Will go a long way and make a big impact. I mean, I'm still pro tell your boss to suck it and not work as much. But if you don't want to tell,
bleeping button?
If you don't want to tell your boss to suck it, here are some other ways that you can try and carve some of these healthier habits into your everyday life. I think it's where you're going.
Well, that's what it is. Like, yeah, stand up for yourself at work. Find other jobs that will take care of you the way you need to be, treated. And then, yeah, when you're at home with your free time, hold yourself accountable to doing things that are going to benefit your well-being overall. And then if it benefits your well-being, well, it's going to benefit those that are around you, whether it's your family, your kids, friends, etc. So it's time to basically start fighting against the enemy.
Yeah, and I think you have to fight the temptation, too, of like, okay, does it sound more exhilarating to like sit at home with your family and play Battleship or go like watch your kid crush it on the soccer field and score a bunch of goals? Well, it's like, I think the temptation is always going to be for like success and how awesome we can be and showing off our talents and our achievements. And it's like,
I don't know. I love Battleship.
Well, okay, I don't. But my point being is like a lot of times it's very tempting to choose like the flashy, what seemingly is like cool things. And it's like sometimes we just need to gravitate towards like the boring things, like even like napping. Good Lord, like when did we decide that like we shouldn't nap anymore? It's like everybody needs
Oh, man, let's just make this rest of the podcast about that. Yeah, a 10-minute, 15-minute nap can change your life.
Right, but like they don't give you nap time at your job. They gave you nap time in like kindergarten, and then they were like, "Oh, that's it. That's enough napping for you." And it's like,
man,
what?
Amen,
like,
sister.
The kids are the ones with all the energy. The adults need the naps. Like we need the little recharge. So it's like just small things. Like, hey, if you can squeeze in a nap at your job, maybe close your eyes for 20 minutes. Your boss won't even notice. Shut the door. It's like all these little things. It's like,
hey, that must be what the government's too busy doing, taking a bunch of naps.
Yeah, probably. Oh. That's probably what they do on our dollar, on all our tax money.
Yeah, buddy. Oh, man. So, moral of the story, take a nap. That'll heal a bunch of wounds. Go back into your past. Go back into your family's lineage. What are some things that have been passed down to you? Start digging into that. Do a little homework. Take a little time to see what emotions are rising when you're on the, or in any form of media. And basically, moral of the story for those believers out there, get into the Word of God, get into your prayer. And I would challenge you, do what you're not good at. I feel like there's a couple avenues with being a believer. You have reading God's Word, worshiping, and you have like praying. And those are like the trifecta. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that err towards one of those three and aren't really good at all three. And what I would challenge you to do as part of fighting against what Satan wants to do is to work on the weaker area. And so for me, it's always been praying and worshiping were my weaker areas, where opening the Bible just was easy for me to do. So I've been in that for the last 6 months of just going, all right, not that I'm not going to read the Bible, but I'm going to sit there and okay, what's worship look like? What does that mean? What does it mean to turn on some worship and to praise God? What does it look like to this closet is not only a podcast closet, it's a prayer closet. And again, I didn't start with locking myself in a closet for 3 hours and go, I'm going to talk to God. It's like I started with 5 minutes. Nothing really big happened. And I did it again, another 5 minutes. Nothing big happened. It was just quiet. And honestly, being a parent of 4, it actually was nice just sit in the closet for 5 minutes just with quiet. So that was already a blessing. But it wasn't like a month until I started seeing the fruits of it with God. So it was amazing. So I'd challenge you to work on your weaker area.
All right. Are we doing unpopular opinions?
Yeah.
All right. So my unpopular opinion is that we are groomed from the time that we are like 5 or 6 years old to be working more than we should. And what I mean by that is that when we go to school starting at a young age, we are gone from our houses from like 8 to 4, which is just like insanity because really, I mean, you can get all your learning done in like 3 hours that needs to be just like developmentally appropriate. But the government needs somewhere for all these. In case you can't tell, I don't like the government.
This podcast is going to be
canceled. We're going to get canceled. It's fine. They need somewhere for these kids to go so that the parents can work for them and make them all the money. So they're like, oh, well, let's just take their kids for like 7-8 hours. And, we're going to underpay the people that are responsible for these kids because we don't really care. We just need the adults making all the money so that we can blow it all or send it to God knows where. So my point being is I think we're like from a young age we're conditioned to think like, oh, this is how productive you have to be, this is how much you have to work, this is how much you need to produce, and it's like, no, not really. So yeah, so then by the time we're adults we're just used to being out of our houses from like 8 to 5 every day, which is like, again, insanity. It's like you need time to spend with your family, you need time to do things that bring you joy, you need time to take care of your body, you need even just like cleaning your house, or like the amount of people that wish they would just have some time to like clean out and organize and do all these things in their house, but it's like they can't, they don't have the time, they're too busy working, taking their kids here, doing this, doing that. So it's like, I don't know, I just wish that like the structure was set up from the beginning for us to be able to live a little bit more of a balanced life instead of just being productive and busy all the time.
Well, amen to that. And then I would take it even a step further is you have the time. I mean, being a small business owner, everybody said, oh, you don't have the time. Well, guess what? I stay up till 2:30 in the morning if I have to, sending estimates. You make the time, So there's always, I always take it an extra layer of the time's there. I mean, even if it feels like you're working 60 hours a week.
I just feel like you shouldn't have to, though. That's the thing.
If
the structure was set up better, it would be less work and more time for fun and things that we need to get done.
Amen.
So, like, you can always get it done, but it shouldn't have to be that way. We shouldn't always have to be so exhausted and burnt out. Like, the last month, we've had to live in that space of, like, being overbooked, and it's just not a space that we will continue to do because it's just not healthy for anybody. But it's like, I understand there's seasons that maybe it's like things are going to be out of whack and you just have to power through and get done what you need to done, but it shouldn't be our lifestyle. Like, it's an American thing. It's the American culture. It sucks. Like,
it's
sucks.
American culture meant to break you down.
Yeah.
And so what a great unpopular opinion. My unpopular opinion is calling out the believers, calling out the Christians, is, do you realize you're in a battle? I think there's a lot of believers out there that go to their beautiful churches with their, we're not even in pews anymore. We're more in like these comfy seats, and we go to our seats and we see these great messages and it feels super enlightening and exciting. Sometimes some of us just go there for the coffee, etc. And then you go the rest of the week and you don't even realize you're in a battle. So then you choose everything that's of the world. You choose to be busy, chaotic. You then have depression, anxiety, anger, and you're a non-functioning mess. And here's the sad part. You open up the same word of God that shows you this life that you can live, that's an abundance of peace, of joy, and all the fruits that God gives us, yet we deny it. So I think for some, for people out there that don't even realize God's gift, that realize that He wants you to have a relationship with Him where He can provide joy and peace, I have so much grace and empathy and kindness to you. And I'll throw myself under the bus. I lived a lot of my life not even living with God, understanding what He wanted in store for me. I was living what the world sold me, and the world sold me this product of, you will get happiness when you make money, and when you make money you can buy things that give you happiness. And then with that endless pursuit, it's left me empty, angry, depressed, anxious, etc. So this is my call out to all believers. Sit there and go, it's time to take all the lies of the devil, ignore them, start opening your scriptures, understanding what the scriptures are telling you, which is to pursue what God has in store for us. It's a whole new rhythm. It's a rhythm where you follow the sunrise, the sunset, you follow the seasons. In the summer, there's more daylight, which means we can get more done. In the winter, there's less daylight, which means that we should rest a little bit more. On Sabbath, which, if we want to get into the Sabbath, it's either Saturday or Sunday, but either way, take one day a week and just slow down and rest. Go to church, enjoy the downtime, try not to get all this work done. It's your time to rest. The rest of the 6 days of the week, you can go kick butt, go to work, go to the gym, do everything else. So it's about finding God's rhythm. So I just implore you to seek that out, to open up His Word, to pray, spend time with God, and ask Him. I literally have spent a season just asking God, like, what do you want from me in this season? And there's been times where I've worked 80 hours a week, and then there's been time where I've slowed down and taken a week off just randomly, because that was the season that God had me in. And I I used to fight it, and now I'm learning to embrace it. So that's our challenge for our listeners.
So basically, if I could sum up this episode in one statement.
Yeah, if you don't want to listen to all this nonsense and you want like the just 1 minute, Kira's great at this. What would you say?
I don't even need a minute. One statement.
Wow.
The American dream is a lie. It's a lie. Don't listen to it.
It's an American nightmare. It's a nightmare, I tell you. Well, I feel like I feel like if the government finds out about this,
typical
we're in
Cameron,
trouble.
he's going to try and add a bunch of words to my statement that means
No,
needs no explaining.
No, but you said you said it's not a dream, but I'm sitting there going, well, you were bashing the government the whole entire time. I'm just wondering if we should like throw extra locks on our doors today or
I don't
something.
care. They can come for me. Whatever.
Oh,
Doesn't
Lord
matter.
have mercy. For anybody that's leaking this or anybody from up top that's hearing this, I am disassociating myself from Kira. So if you come seize anything, you can take her.
Whatever. All right. Well, we'll catch you. We'll catch you guys probably in another month when we sit down to do this.
We'll see you next year.
And with that, we're out.
Oh, and just so everybody knows, is if you're actually viewing this, there is drinks in our mugs. It's not just props. I actually got water. What do you got over there?
Cold coffee.
That's the best. That's our next podcast. Cold coffee versus hot coffee. Iced coffee versus warm coffee.
All right. Catch you guys later.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Living Life with the Rogers with Cameron and Kira.
You can find us over on Instagram at Living Life with the Rogers Family. We love to post on there, and we will check in on DMs and comments and get back to you guys if you have any questions. And if you would like to hear future episodes, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See ya.